What's up, everybody? So we got some fun news today. Jake Paul, YouTuber, but also boxer. You got to give the dude the credit because he got in there and he's 2-0 as a boxer with real punches flying. So, you got to give the man respect. But Jake Paul has certainly been barking up the wrong tree, trying to call out real professional fighters. Guys like Conor McGregor, even guys like Dylan Dennis, but most notably, Jake Paul, after his win over Nate Robinson in November on the Tyson Roy Jones Jr. undercard, Jake Paul came out and said he wants to fight Conor McGregor. Now, here's the thing. Jake Paul weighed in at 189 pounds for this fight. He says he was cutting weight. Doesn't look like he was cutting weight to me. Come on, the foremost expert in weight cutting over here. Maybe he was. That's cool, but the dude just doesn't know how to do it yet. That's fine. He's not a pro fighter. He's not even that well experienced in fighting. Weight cut is a problem for a lot of fighters. Pro fighters, long-term fighters, they still mess it up all the time. As we can see in boxing, the UFC athletes miss weight all the time. I digress. So, Jake weighed in at 189 pounds. Conor McGregor has fought as high as 170 pounds, but even then, Conor's weight class is 145 to 155. Conor probably walks around in the 170s or so, relatively fit. If Conor's getting up over 180, he's going to be getting soft. Jake Paul, on the other hand, probably can now walk around somewhere closer to 200 pounds, relatively athletic. All right, we'll give him that. So let's say Jake is a true middleweight at 185 pounds. Could probably make welterweight at 170. Where am I going with this? Follow me. Stick with me here a little bit more. Now, Dana White has come out and said there's no way Conor McGregor's fighting Jake Paul. Jake Paul says he offered Conor McGregor a $50 million contract to fight him in what likely will be the biggest pay-per-view of all time. This is sports entertainment, right? It doesn't really have any bearing on any major organization. It doesn't mean Jake Paul's fighting skills are up to par with that of professional fighter world champions like Conor McGregor, two-division world champion, Roy Jones Jr., Mike Tyson, who were the main event on the card. Jake Paul was on the undercard with. But Jake Paul brings eyeballs. He brings excitement. He brings entertainment. And he knows that. He's got the charisma. You got to give people credit where they deserve credit. At the same time, Jake Paul is not nearly the caliber of athlete a Conor McGregor is, especially when it comes to fighting. Now, there is a weight differential, but the likelihood of Conor McGregor fighting Jake Paul anytime within the next 3 years is very, very small to non-existent at all. But in comes Amanda Nunes sliding into Jake Paul's DMs. Amanda Nunes is the female GOAT, the greatest of all times. Amanda Nunes is a two-division world champion with wins over Ronda Rousey, took the title from Ronda Rousey, or defended her title, I should say, against Ronda Rousey. Also, Amanda Nunes beat Chris Cyborg, who was previously considered to be the GOAT female mixed martial arts competitor, right? Chris Cyborg is a legend in her own right. Now, Chris Cyborg walks around. Now, this is where the story gets interesting, why I started talking about Jake's weight. Chris Cyborg walks around, has spoken about walking around closer to the 180-pound mark. Chris Cyborg is a very heavily muscled athlete. Chris Cyborg could barely make the 145-pound weight class and almost missed it a few times. So Chris Cyborg was a massive 145-pounder. Amanda Nunes, the bantamweight, the 135-pounder, was able to move up a weight class to 145 and destroy Cyborg, who probably fought closer to 170 pounds on fight night. Now picture this. Amanda Nunes fought a 170-ish pound, multi-time world champion, knockout artist, Muay Thai specialist, okay? That being said, Amanda Nunes has now called out Jake Paul to fight him in a boxing match. This is where things get a little interesting, because the likelihood, honestly, of this fight ever happening is the same likelihood as Conor McGregor fighting Jake Paul. Very small, but at the same time, it now puts Jake in a very challenging position, because Jake was using social media, doing the things that YouTube personalities do, creating hype and excitement in calling Conor McGregor out. He actually said some nasty stuff about Conor's fiance. I'm not a fan of that. That's just beneath everyone here. Don't bring civilians into the conversation. That's really low on Jake's part. So Amanda Nunes steps in and says to Dana White, I'm in. She now wants to fight Jake Paul, but this fight is a different fight than many people think. This is actually a dangerous fight. How do I know this? Because my time in the sport, I know for a fact that Amanda Nunes is lethal in training against men. And I'm not going to name names and shout anyone out, but I will tell you definitively 100%, Amanda Nunes can knock men out. Amanda Nunes can knock bigger men than her out. Amanda Nunes can knock out well-trained, larger male professional fighters. That being said, how does Jake Paul now fare against someone like Amanda Nunes? Forget about Conor McGregor, because truly Conor McGregor destroys Jake Paul. Destroys him. If Conor wants to, Conor could knock Jake Paul out in the first round, maybe the second round in boxing rules. That's just the way it goes. That's like saying you can beat Dale Earnhardt Jr. in a race around town. I don't care how much you drive your car. You are not beating a professional at what they do, specifically not in combat sports. But now Amanda once again jumps into the conversation and makes it interesting. So I wanted to share this with you. Some of you have seen it. Some of you might not have seen it. But what do you think? What do you think about this? Do you think, number one, this fight would ever happen between Jake and Conor or Jake and Amanda? But most importantly, how do you think a fight between Jake and Amanda would go? Let's pontificate. Let's have a fun and discuss this. How would this actually go? 2-0 YouTuber Jake Paul, but he got in there. He throws hands. The dude trains hard. You got to give people credit once again. Jake Paul trains hard. I've watched some of the behind the scenes and some of his training. Dude is in there. He's putting in work. He's training hard. He looks good in training. But just like a bodybuilder who steps on stage, bodybuilders look great on their Instagram account. You put them on stage, you put them on stage and they look like chewed up bubble gum. They look like they're 10 weeks out. That's just the way it is. You put someone who looks good on the bag, on the pads, all by themselves against a trained assassin, a highly skilled professional mixed martial artist, man, it's not even the same world. But the interesting factor here is Jake Paul, 190-pound man, versus Amanda Nunes, 160-pound female, probably. Now, if that fight happened, and I'll matchmake. I'll play a modern-day Sean Shelby here. I would say, all right, catch weight, Jake Paul. We're actually going to fight at 172 pounds, you versus Amanda Nunes. How's that sound? Now, how does that fight go down? Jake could make the weight for sure. I've seen recent photos of him. He can make the weight for sure. He'd be super lean, super shredded. He probably should be fighting closer to 170, 175. Anyway, how does that fight go? I mean, it's not going to happen. No male and female stuff is going to happen, nor should it happen. I don't believe in that type of stuff, the spectacle. But at the same time, if it did happen, I think Jake would be surprised at the difference in a highly skilled professional athlete like Amanda Nunes. I mean, let alone Conor McGregor, because Conor McGregor is an equal as a technician, let's say, to give Amanda her just due, to give Conor his just due. Conor's a 2-division world champion against grown-ass men. Knocks out dudes. Now, Conor McGregor knocks out dudes, big dudes, dudes well bigger than Jake Paul. Come on. Conor McGregor's been in the game a long time, knocking dudes out cold, toying with them, doing anything he wants to them. Do you think Jake Paul is the first 190-pound guy Conor McGregor has lined up against? Oh, hell no. Hell no. But anyway, leave comments below. I want to hear your thoughts on this one. What do you guys think about this one? Leave your thoughts below. Bang, bang. Give the video a thumbs up if you like this conversation. I'll do more of these MMA, boxing, combat sports kind of conversations with you guys. You seem to enjoy it. I certainly like to have these conversations. Check out our Patreon page where we go deep behind the scenes, and I really do pull back the curtain on a lot more stuff that I just can't put out here on the YouTube channel. So check out the Mike Dolce Knows Patreon page. And until next time, boom.